Apparently my son got stung by a bee for the first time today at the apple orchard.
How's he doing? He didn't have a reaction?
No, it doesn't
Good.
sound nothing severe anyways.
Good. Good.
All right, are we ready to go? Okay. We are successfully, it seems, live streaming. And it's 4 o'clock on September 21st, 2019. We just finished up the special general meeting for the bylaw amendment that did pass. And so that's in place. Welcome, everybody, and thanks for attending. My name is Eric Trower. I'm the Vice President here in Sutton Valley Board and the Director of the Communication Committee, or the Chair of the Communication Committee. Is this cutting in and out? Okay. And so welcome to this first candidate forum for this next election. I'd like to introduce Tara DeVoe and Judy White. They are on the Communication Committee and have, for the past at least 2 years, been the subcommittee that creates this forum. And so thank you to both of them for the format, the design, the questions, their compiling of community questions that will be asked. And so, great. We will be done here by 6 o'clock. So, I know. We've been here all day already, I know.
Who said that?
I want to take care of a couple of housekeeping things very quickly. Bathrooms. Anyone needs a restroom, there's one there in the back corner and also downstairs. We will take a 5-minute break after about an hour into this, unless everybody speaks very quickly and we're done in an hour. But we have a table over here on the south side of the room with handouts from each candidate. But please pick them up and read them. There's also on each end of the rail in the back the special edition of the Views that has all of their vision statements, their biography, and anything else that has to do with the annual general meeting, which is coming up on November 2nd. I'd like to recognize any other candidates that are present that are not running for the board. I think I see, do I see anyone running for the Nomination and Election Committee? Fred Haslam here is running for the Nomination and Election Committee. Because there were more seats open than were applied for, I'd like to preliminarily congratulate him for winning in November. Yeah, if you vote for yourself, Fred, you're in. And how about Architectural Control Committee? Anyone? No? Okay. Well, at any rate, we have both forums are going to be videotaped and potentially live streamed. Right now, we are successfully live streaming this event. It'll be available on the Sutton Valley YouTube channel, and if you go to the SuttonValley.com website, there is a link to the YouTube channel. Today's agenda, I'm going to let Judy take care of the review of the second agenda and today's agenda. But, okay, yeah, you guys will take care of that. Yeah. One thing before I turn it over to Judy is that I really appreciate the volunteerism that's being shown by everyone here. And in fact, everybody here in this audience are contributing their time to this community simply by being here and being involved in whatever way they see that their heart feels they need to. And this applying to be a director of the board or becoming elected is sometimes a thankless job. Sometimes people do thank you for what you do. But there's a a misunderstanding that a lot of people have about they will confuse or sometimes conflate the ideas of responsibility and authority. And being a board member, you get to take all the responsibility and none of the authority is given. And a single board member doesn't have authority. It's the board as a whole that has the authority. And so it's sometimes shocking to people to realize that the sacrifice that people give to be sitting up here right now is all about a sacrifice. And so I appreciate all of you and thank you for being here. And now I'd like to reintroduce Judy White, and she'll continue with the plan of the day.
I don't know if Eric mentioned, but if you would put your cell phones on mute, that would be a good idea. We are going to end by 6 or sooner. Depends on how we go. We want to move along quickly, so we want to share with you a little bit about the format. Basically, the candidates are going to have 2 minutes each to introduce themselves. We're going to be having both randomly drawn questions as well as a couple of questions that we gave to the candidates a few days ago. And a couple of them will be answered by whoever draws that question. Some of them will be answered by all 5. We're going to have a break and then more randomly drawn questions. And then each candidate will have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. The very first thing we want to just share with you before we start with candidate self-introductions is that we asked them all to research Sudden Valley Community Association's articles of incorporation, bylaws, covenants, rules and restrictions, the CC&Rs, or other governing documents in order to provide answers that demonstrate both their understanding of restrictions that may affect decisions or changes, and how they would accomplish changes and improvements in those constraints. So now for candidates' self-introductions, we would like to start with Don, who will introduce himself, and will be speaking for several minutes. And welcome to you, and here you are.
Also, I'm glad to see the 5 candidates, and I wish you luck and good wishes in your campaign. I see now why people are leaning over. Okay. I want to read to you a memo that I wrote to the Sudden Valley Community Association Board of Directors and the Nominations and Elections Committee, dated September 17th, 2019. The subject being my nomination for the Board of Directors. The following is meant to be both a personal statement and a public record regarding my attempt to become a board member of the Sudden Valley Association. My wife and I moved into Sudden Valley in July 1999. This is my record of the past several weeks. During those weeks, other people have been verbally attacked because they have tried to guide me toward my goal of helping the association move forward. Because of what has occurred to them and to me during that time, I am no longer interested in pursuing a board of directors position. I also want to clarify that I do not know Miss Lee Langdon, nor have I ever met her. The Shermanesque statement fits this situation. I will not accept if nominated, and I will not serve if elected. Earlier this summer, as the general meeting began to appear on the calendar of coming events, I began to consider the opportunity of serving on the board of directors. I talked with some of my close friends and received both encouragement and caution. The opportunity waxed and waned in my thinking. Other events in my personal life were occurring, including an annual road trip to honor my late wife. She died in September 2005, and because she and I love to travel, I have taken a road trip each year during September since then. On Thursday, August 29th, I was in Beechwood, Ohio, visiting my oldest daughter, when the idea of running for one of the positions on the board came to fruition. I contacted one of my friends to discuss via email submitting my application for the board. I've known him for many years and have worked with him on other projects. He was very encouraging and told me that he also was submitting an application. So with David Narcisco's encouragement, I decided to proceed. I called the Sudden Valley Administration Office and talked to a staff person who told me that I could submit my application electronically via email to Lee Langdon. As you know, because of the date, I needed to submit the application quickly. It was Labor Day weekend. The application deadline was Tuesday, September 3rd, 2019. I emailed the application to Lee Langdon on Friday, 8/30/2019 at 11:29 a.m. as an attachment. I ended the email with the statement that if there were any questions, she should call me. A few minutes later, I emailed David Narcisco telling him that I had submitted an application, and he replied, "Great." The next time that David and I exchanged emails was on September 7th, when he sent me an email telling me that my name had not been included on the ballot draw. He wondered if I had withdrawn at the very last minute. On Saturday, September 7th, 2019, at 8:05 p.m., I emailed Ms. Langdon asking why I was not included in the draw. She replied by email to me almost immediately, September 7th at 8:34 p.m., apologizing for not having looked at her email. Also in that email, she told me that David Narcisco had withdrawn. She included in the email all the information that was sent to the other candidates, requesting biography, photo, and a vision statement. The next time that Ms. Langdon and I had contact was on the phone, and we discussed what should be done. Ms. Langdon said that there were two possibilities. One, to put my name on the ballot by moving the fifth person into David Narcisco's position and placing me in the sixth or last position. The other was to do another drawing for the ballot. She let me choose. I said that to be fair to me and to be treated like the other candidates, another ballot draw should occur. Ms. Langdon scheduled that for Wednesday, September 11th at 5:15 p.m. She notified the other candidates and apologized to them for the need to do a second draw. Early on the 11th, September 11th, Ms. Langdon began to receive and answer emails from the candidates about the second draw. She answered the questions very graciously, handling them very clearly and again apologizing. The drawing was held and I was included in the drawing. I was to be listed on the ballot in the fourth position. Because I began to hear that Ms. Langdon and Mr. Narcisco were being verbally attacked about the application process and the vetting process, and that my personal future plans had changed, I decided to withdraw from the election process. I called Ms. Langdon and told her of my decision. She told me that unfortunately the deadline to withdraw had passed. The only way I could see for me to proceed was to not submit my candidate documents and not to campaign. I did not submit the documents. By the way, in the vision statement that I had written, I described how I liked being a part of Sudden Valley and that I wanted to see the association to continue to grow and be responsive to members. I will not be campaigning. which includes reading this document today and not appearing at the candidates forum on October 7. Again, in the words of American Civil War General William Tecumseh Sherman, I will not serve if elected. Thank you. Carl Pearson. And again, good luck.
Thank you.
For those of you who want to ask questions of our candidates, we have 3x5 cards and a green box to put them in during this forum. We'll collect them at the end, and in their next forum in October, we'll be sharing those questions along with others that we have left over from this time. Also, we have already enjoyed giving our candidates a nice round of applause, and we'll have another opportunity at the end of the forum today. But in the meantime, since we're short on time, as always, with so many questions and candidates who want to share their views, that's why we're here. We ask you to please hold your applause until the end of the forum. Thank you. So now, we would like candidate introductions. Well, who would like to go first?
I guess I'll go first. My name's Josh Luttrell. First came to Sun Valley in 1996 when I was just 10 years old. My family visited here for many years before we finally moved up in 2004. Bought my first house here in 2012. And I've just really been a part of this community and made lots of friends and neighbors that, you know, we have lifelong bonds with, and I want to continue serving Sudden Valley. I try and stay as active as I can, and whether it's helping with the garden club and moving sheds, or being out on the golf course, or even when we had some maintenance shortages, I was out there in front of Gate 1 sign mowing the yard. So this is kind of the next step for me to give back to the association and the community. Thank you.
And who would like to go next? Go ahead, just go
Oh,
ahead.
yeah, why don't you go ahead? That makes sense.
Easy. All right. My name is Karen Borchert. We have lived here for 5 years. My husband and I moved here with our 2 kids then, and we now have 3. I had a baby shortly after moving here. I have a degree in finance, and I worked for about a decade for doing various things, some consulting, some budgeting. I've even done a little bit of forensic auditing and various things. And throughout my time here, I have been involved in various committees. I think it was maybe within the first year of living here, I joined Long Range Planning Committee. That led to the Parks and Trails Committee. I also was elected and spent some time serving on the ACC, and I'm currently a member of the Finance Committee, and I still serve on Parks and Trails. I also was one of the 4 members of Sudden Valley Strong that brought the special assessment last year to help fund our pools and our parks. And so the board of directors seemed like the next natural progression for me, the next natural step to take, being involved as long as I had. I hope to be able to bring my understanding of budgeting and finance to the board, and I'm here for the long haul. We hope this is our forever home, and so I'm really looking for long-term solutions. Thanks.
Thank you. Who would like to be next? Josh. All right.
My name is Joshua Bowens. I moved to Sudden Valley here with my family a year and a couple months ago. I have a wife and 2 kids and a bunch of pets, and we came here from Florida, all packed in a truck. We lost a mattress, we lost a tire, and it was like, you know, the craziest experience, but we absolutely love it here. My background is in design and advertising. I currently work for a small creative agency out of Orlando. They trust me to work remotely from here. We work on mom and pop startup shops, and then we also have national brands like Walt Disney World, Parks and Resorts, and Fresh Express that we do work for. And it's, you know, it's awesome to be able to do that from the comfort of my home in a very beautiful environment here. The reason that I am running for board is because I believe that my creative thinking and problem-solving skills would really benefit Sudden Valley. You know I have a lot to learn as far as the ins and outs go with how things are run here, but I would love to be able to, you know, provide my experiences to that to try to help us become a better community.
And next,
Thanks. Hi, I'm Steffi Jones. I always want to say my address. No. We moved here in 2016, and I was relatively new to Bellingham, and I could not imagine that every single house in Sudden Valley wasn't already bought up, because this is the most desirable area to me. And the reason why I got involved was to make it really, really nice. And I just feel like I bring some unique skills in with my background in nursing that I think that, you know, there's a lot that can be fixed in the community between relations and communication, you know, different things there. I feel like we definitely can be the greatest place to live in this area in Whatcom County. My background. So nursing is my second career. Oh, I'll hurry. Prior to that, I did office management and oversaw projects in construction. So yeah, I bring a little bit of diversity. Thank you.
and you,
Oh, okay, well, that's fine. I talked enough.
All right. My name is Andrew Tischletter. Me and my wife and my son moved to Sudden Valley about 2.5 years ago. We just recently added another one to our family a few weeks ago. And my background is I'm a civil engineer. My role as a civil engineer is a project manager and project engineer. I manage I manage in-house staff to do road and drainage designs, as well as managing consultant teams and contractors to build the projects that we design. Help implement and plan a capital program similar to what Sudden Valley does. And I also have some experience in environmental restoration work and trail building as well. And that's pretty much my background.
thank you all. We're next going to offer this question that we gave them several days ago, that they could be anticipate this one, and we're going to let them have 3 minutes each for this kind of combined question. What is your view of the Washington Uniform Common Interest Ownership Act, WUCIOA, and its effect on our HOA? Additionally, what is your view of the results of today's special general meeting measure mandating an annual cap on dues and assessments? So you have 3 minutes each. And, well, let's see. How about we go in reverse order then?
Sounds good. My views on the WICOA Act are, I feel like the voting standards set forth in WICOA are a bit unrealistic for a community the size of ours. We are not a condominium association, all with relatively equal shares in a building and relatively equal property values. We have 3,200-ish billable lots, I think, or something around there, all ranging from small little cabins to multi-million-dollar lakefront properties. The diversity here creates a situation where we really have to think about all of our neighbors, and I feel like WICOA has created a situation where we as owners have lost some of our voice to be able to give input to the community on what types of projects we would like to see here and how we would like to see our community move forward. I believe that WICOA is something that the board, as, you know, a political-ish entity representing our community, should be discussing with our representatives, the impacts. Obviously, a lot of property owners have written to our senators and our representatives and in support or against the WICOA bill. And, you know, I believe that the board should use its political sway a bit as well to help promote a more fair voting practice that allows the majority to dictate what actually gets done and what gets passed as far as dues and assessments go. As far as the SGM results, I think it is fantastic. I think it was a huge community effort and lots of people put in a lot of time, and I'm very appreciative of all that. I think it's a completely reasonable limitations that we set, and as people stated in the meeting earlier today, lots of states have similar laws to WICOA with caps already built in. And so I believe that with the SGM passing, that our current board should take notice and that they should develop a budget that meets the bylaws, and we should move forward as a community and be united.
Okay, thank you, AJ. That was awesome, and I completely agree with everything that AJ said. That was great. Well, Kiowa, the effects on our HOA, basically it's been further divisive for us because I understand the intent of the law was in order to protect assets, get things moving along so that boards were able to remedy some of their issues. However, it doesn't fit our community. Our community is too large. We're way too diverse. And, you know, it's unfortunate in this situation where I'm finding out in history we feel that the budget has not been funded properly, and so now we're really getting hit hard, and it's really affecting some of our neighbors. And I've talked to a lot of people, and it really affects them to take these huge leaps in the budget and assessments, dues. It's not fair, and it's not right. I don't agree with the voting. The voting is a veto vote, and hopefully everyone knows what that means. 50% plus one have to reject a budget. And this is a problem where we don't historically get a huge turnout for voting. Yeah, so that's where I stand on that part. And then I'll go into the SGM. I'm for it, those of you that know. I worked very hard in helping with that. My entire family helped with that. We stood alongside the road and picketed and waved signs and collected signatures, and I spoke to a lot of people. And that was the important part, and that is what actually drove me to getting involved, and that's why I'm here today, after speaking to so many people and hearing their stories and their feelings. And I think that the 2,000 people that showed up to vote should pat themselves on the back, because that is a huge turnout, and I would like to see 2,500 at least for November. So, yeah. And there's no one governing the HOAs. The state writes a law for us, and then there's no checks and balances. They sort of just put this law on us, and then there's nowhere we can turn. We have to resolve this issue within ourselves. So that's why I like the limitation. It gives our families security. They can budget. I mean, I know I would like to budget. My last kiddo is taking college classes, and I have grandbabies I'd rather budget for too. So, 7% seems fair, and I fully support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Joshua? She'll start when you start.
Okay, I'm just curious of how it works. I mean, these guys pretty much said what I would say. My concern with Wakaiowa, well, first of all, it's interesting that this is a question again this year. I think it comes up in people's minds on, I think people are afraid of the budgets in the future and what they're going to be looking at with their monthly dues. I think one of the biggest things with Wekiwa and what it does is, our hugest asset is our community, and to take the voice away from the community and put unreasonable voting standards on top of that, that's a tough thing, and that's where, we have to get a little creative with how we can work around that, and that leads to the SGM and the limits on dues. I spoke about this at the meeting earlier, and the amount of people that came out to support that was unbelievable. And, people have said through the petition drives that they can't afford the increases, or they can't afford it and they don't want to pay it because they don't feel like they're getting a benefit from it, or they feel for their neighbors and, they're afraid, and people are afraid to lose their homes. I think the petition or the limit of the dues and assessments is great because it holds accountability to the board. And, with my job, we get a budget on something and we'll have to give that to a client. And if the client's like, yeah, that's too much, then we have to work within our means and come up with new ideas in order to pass things and get approvals. And I think getting the community more involved in that type of process would be awesome. And I'm still kind of on cloud 9 of the results of the SGM, and I am so proud of everyone that came out to support it. And what, the thing that means the most to me is hearing people say that they're proud of it and they're proud of their efforts together. And so many people put so much time and involvement in, and I can't stress it enough. It's awesome.
Thank you. Karen?
First of all, I want to say, having done a SGM last year, that I know how much work it takes and how much of yourself you put into it. And so I do appreciate people that are willing to put themselves out there and dedicate that much time into helping the community in the way that they see fit. So I do appreciate very much the time that people put into trying to better the community and what they and how they see fit. I've lived, prior to here, I lived in a couple of HOAs that we didn't have the option to vote for the budget at all. We voted for only the board, and I think I took it for granted. So coming here and having had that vote for so long, I think it was a big paradigm shift when this state law was passed, and we had kind of this perfect storm of low reserve balances and a whole bunch of deferred projects, and then this history of where we were used to voting, where people got very, very nervous about where dues could go. But prior to that, we were very nervous about, is the pool going to be open this year? Will the pothole in front of my house ever get fixed? Are the parks ever going to get mowed? And so we were kind of on this pendulum swing. And what everybody wants, what this SGM, what this vote, and the turnout especially underscores, is that what people are really looking for here is stability. They want that stability and that predictability. And we're not going to have it until our reserves are properly funded. It's one thing to stick to a budget. It's a whole other thing to have that budget be planning for the future and setting long-term goals. So we really need this stability and this predictability. And as a member of the Finance Committee, I have been able to work a little bit recently with members of the Finance Committee and with staff, and kind of looking at what that long-term plan would look like, and how does that match up with our reserves and our projects that we need to do. And I'm really encouraged and optimistic that we can find a way to be able to bring everyone together where we're not fighting between, it's either dues, unrestricted dues, or these projects that we want to do, but we can bring them close together and be able to produce a solution that everybody can be happy with. And I shouldn't say everybody could be happy, because I have 3 kids and I can't even make dinner and make everyone happy, but that most people will feel comfortable with. And so I really think that that stability is what the community is looking for, and I hope that we can, all work together as a board, as a community to bring that together. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. Josh?
I'm for it. I believe without it, Sun Valley would have continued down the road of degradation that it was already on. I think it's important that we build back our infrastructure, support our amenities, and support our HOA. You know, that's why we are where we're at now, is because we have not been able to sufficiently fund our infrastructure. And so I had the concern too with some of the big jumps and dues. I still do. But that's why I'm sitting here now, because I'd like to roll up my sleeves and try and see and learn how we can meet in the middle and bring everyone together here in the Valley to agree on how we move forward as a community. As far as the vote today for the dues, for the 7%, I think it's incredible for a record vote. I think that's terrific. My concern, though, with that being said, though, and again, why I'm here is the information that's being passed around. I think we need, or the board, or us as a whole, need to make sure the correct and proper information is getting out so we can educate the homeowners so they can empower them to make the decisions with the right information out there.
Thank you, Josh. All right, we will now do a random draw. Each candidate will answer one of 5 questions drawn. We're going to start with the gentleman in the middle.
Are you the monkey in the middle?
3 minutes again? 2 minutes.
I was gonna say 3 minutes might make it seem like a
Okay,
long
this
time.
is for Josh Bowen. If elected, are you prepared to place less emphasis on a personal agenda in order to facilitate the needs of all members? Please give at least one example.
Of course. I think I guess this would be a personal agenda, but I think it's for the greater good. You know, I wanted to get involved with Sudden Valley in some form or way. I didn't see myself sitting on a committee yet. So what I did was I approached Mr. Akla about doing some signs for the entrances, because I feel like a little bit of a boost and a refreshing look to the community would be, you know, something of value. And, you know, it's been a couple of months and we're probably putting those up next week, and I'm thrilled with it because we were able to do something together as, you know, with maintenance and with the GM, and we were able to accomplish something together. And, you know, it started out as like, hey, this is something I wanted to do, but more people got involved in it. And I think everyone's going to be happy once they see them. I think it'll bring some more pride to the people who enter the gates, and it'll freshen up the look. And we did it under budget, and I'm happy about it.
Thank you. Our next question will be for Steffi.
Oh, that's not a good sign. She doesn't understand the question. Redraw.
All board members are expected to serve on a board committee, including communication, finance, parks, trails, recreation, document review, and emergency preparedness. Where do you think your talents would be best utilized and why?
Okay, wow, this is gonna shock some people, but I'm a talker. So, I would love to be on the communications committee. I also, I think that I have really blossomed out and been reaching out to people and been able to have some hard conversations and get messages out. And so that really, you know, I feel like you guys get a lot of slack for things, and on any committee really, or board. But part of my self-journey has been working through hard conversations, tough situations, those types of things. So I would love communications. My heart is in the parks and trails, and I do appreciate, thank you, Karen, for your work on that. Grew up grew my kids up hiking and enjoying nature, so I would love that as well. I don't know, how many can I, do I have to say no after a certain, you're gonna have to flag me down. Okay, just wave like you're going over. I apologize, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Next
you.
will be for Karen. Name 3 positive things that the past board has accomplished, which you would like to build on going forward.
Okay. The first thing that comes to mind is recently, maybe 2 or 3 board meetings ago, the board unanimously passed unanimously approved the plan to finish Gate 5 Park finally, so to put in the borders, the appropriate fall service and whatever, and then do a little bit of work out here in this one. And that is the first time I've seen capital applied towards the parks in a long time, so I love to see that. The second thing I would say is this year's budget, and specifically the July 18th meeting. If anyone hasn't had a chance to watch that, I really appreciated the discussion specifically around, number one, adding back in the $40,000 for hazard trees. This is after finance had passed it on, and it was a really good discussion around that, and particularly around, they took out some staff raises, and I know it was a very tough decision, but the discussion around that was so good, going back and forth and thinking about what is the cost benefit of this, and trying to think outside the box so that they could keep our operations expenses down and still be able to take care of our staff. And then the last one is Area Z, which probably wasn't even this year, but I am so proud of them for sticking with it for so long, and we're almost there, I think, to get it cleared.
Thank you. Next will be Andrew. Should amenities be self-sustaining? Please be specific in regards to parks, golf, pools, gym, or the marina, and/or the marina.
I think ideally, yeah, it would be great if all amenities were self-sustaining. I think, a good portion of them potentially could be. As I understand, the marina already turns a small profit every year usually. And, parks obviously aren't bringing in, revenue, bringing in much revenue, if any at all. But I think, most people agree that having parks and our green spaces and things like that around our neighborhood provide a lot of aesthetics and amenities that we like to have. I think the golf course should sustain itself as well. I think, it seems like it's close in a lot of years if you don't include the capital costs associated with it. And I think, there potentially could be some changes made that we could potentially get it there. I think to some extent though, whether an amenity is self-sustaining or not, there is a threshold at some point where it is, an economic drain on the community, and, we need to recognize those things and look for ways to mitigate that and reduce that impact. And if an amenity can't be self-sustaining, then, I think a lot of community input would need to be gathered, and we would have to decide how to, as a community, decide how we want to move forward with an amenity like that. And to keep just throwing money at things for the sake of throwing money at them, isn't always the best decision. So we want to make sure, that we can utilize our amenities to bring in revenue and hopefully turn profits. And if not, we need to mitigate the losses to a point that's acceptable with the community.
Hey, Josh. As one person working on a board, how do you plan to implement and accomplish your personal goals with your gym?
I think as a community, we're not as far apart as it may appear. And my agenda, one of my large ones, are to find a way to communicate all of our information to all of our members in the many ways that would reach them. There's just so much through social media, through word of mouth, that I think we need to figure out a way to and reach everyone and disperse all of the factual information so we can all get together and vote as a whole and move forward as a whole with on the same page. Like I said, I don't think there's that large of a disparity as it appears, obviously, with the vote today. So obviously getting out there and hitting the pavement and dispersing that information and informing all of us, you know, I think I want to take it to that next step and ensure that that happens and we continue with that.
Thank you. Well, our timing is good. We have enough time for one more round before our 5-minute break. This time, we're going to be asking everyone the same question. I think we'll start with ladies first this time. Each person will have 2 minutes. And let's start with Steffi. In addition to a variety of other duties, board members are expected to read and research as needed their agenda packet before each of the 2 monthly board meetings, to participate in and attend meetings of at least one Sudden Valley Community Association committee, as well as respond to emails, etc., from community members. One board member estimated that they spend 15 hours per month, and another estimated spending 4 hours per day in order to adequately meet their responsibilities as a board member. If elected, how do you plan to make the time necessary for these various important duties?
Okay, yes, I've already thought about that. So my estimate was around 4 hours a day when things are heated. So maybe the other 6 months of the year, it's only 15 hours a week, but I imagine that you spend a lot of time. So I was prepared, and I would like to say that, let's see, with my time management, I wake up early, so I would start there, and I also don't have kids at home, so, well, we have one, and so there'd be a bit of an empty nest there. I'm actually excited about filling the time with something positive. I guess that's it. And I'm still in red. That's okay. So she just figured I was going to talk right through it anyway. No. So anyway, I am looking forward, and I realize it would be a lot of time, and there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Karen.
Well, I have been serving on several committees already, and it is a huge sacrifice, and it's also a huge reward. You are able to get in there and talk to people in a way that I think you can't otherwise. There's a really great sense serving on a committee or serving on a board or anything like this, where you get together and as the group, you're working towards solutions together. And sometimes there's really heated debates. When I was on ACC specifically, lots of heated debates, but that took a lot of work to prepare. I spend quite a bit of time, depending on what's going on with parks, getting things ready for our committee meetings and whatever, and finance as well. You know, sometimes you really just have to dig into these spreadsheets and understand the numbers and the assumptions behind them, and it can take a lot of time. And sometimes I'm up till midnight or later doing it, and I'm not looking forward, actually, to spending more time on it. With 3 little kids at home, we are very busy, but at the same time, I am doing this for my family and for my kids and for other families and community members, and so the time is worth it, and it ends up being rewarding anyway, getting to know other people and understanding different perspectives. And so I think that's one thing that I have shown is my commitment to getting up to speed on issues and following through until we find a good resolution or solution.
Thank you. Andrew.
Okay. So as of right now, I already spend time reading through most of the agenda packets for the board meetings and stuff like that to try to stay informed on the decisions that are being made and how those will impact my family. I have a 2.5-year-old and a 3-week-old now, and so, I've had a conversation with my wife before applying for this, and we had, a fairly lengthy conversation on how it would all work and whether we could make this happen. I don't think I would have applied to run for the board if I didn't think I was going to be able to invest the needed time in it. Part of my job is, getting things, relating to staff that work here for Sudden Valley, is getting things ready and putting things together for agenda packets and things like that. I'm pretty familiar with the processes and in place and how we, conduct business. And, I think having some insight for myself on a lot of the things that the association does, being very similar to, a local government jurisdiction. We have roads and parks, and, we make a lot of the same types of decisions that Public Works tends to do for our local municipalities. And so I think that will help me in getting through, the needed materials and stuff. And then, responding to property owners' concerns and questions via email and stuff. That's, I think it's just something you just got to carve time out. And like Karen said, maybe you'll be up till midnight one night.
Thank you. Josh Luttrell.
Well, fortunately, I've had the opportunity to speak to some board members that are there right now, and it's been very clear to see that they do put in a lot of time. It put it into perspective for me, and what I've done is I've just budgeted hours to my week. Probably in the evenings and weekends is when I'm gonna have my free time to do that. And sometimes you go over the budget for the hours, which is gonna be needed, and sometimes I may have an extra hour that I didn't need to be reading over financials or whatever it may be. So I'm planning on putting in the time. I know it's not easy, but I'm willing to do it.
Thank you. And Josh Bowen?
I've been trying to make it to all the most recent board meetings. I came to the financial meetings, the budget presentations or whatever, to try to get used to being involved in such a way. With my job, I have to create my own timelines and milestones. Sometimes I work during the day, sometimes I work at night. I have no problem with investing that time. I do have kids that are a handful, and I've talked it over with my family too, and they all seem to be pretty gung-ho on sending me out on this mission. And I have no problem making the time to try to help make the community better.
Okay, thank you. We have some wonderful juicy questions ahead, but it's time for our break. We're going to restart in 5, not 6, 5 minutes. So we'll see you back in 5.
Do you have the timer on? Because I'm just now figuring out how to look over there.
Hello? Hello? Please take your seats. We're going to start again. We're going to start with random questions. And will everybody please take their seat? Or,
Like your nail polish.
Thanks, I just got it done.
Really?
I thought I'd go full.
So cute. Yeah, I love it.
I was like, I'm gonna go full.
if you haven't already, if you have questions for the candidates to answer in our October forum, please fill out a 3x5 card and put it in the green box.
Yeah, I'm excited about
We
that science
need one more
project.
Joshua up there, and then we'll
Yeah,
start.
that'll be cool to see. I felt like they've needed new signs for a long time. Just kind of drab right now.
Okay. Who would like to go first with a random question?
Number 13.
Raise your
Outside
hand.
here,
Who's
13.
just anxious to get
Yeah.
that first one? Josh will.
Thanks for All right, we're back. Buddy.
Roger that. I'll take the first.
I appreciate that.
How many more question rounds are we doing?
You would have thought after all these.
Lightning round.
That's not good,
This will be 2 minutes each as before. And Joshua Luttrell will start. How would you utilize social media in your role as a board member? And how would you deal with social media activities that appear to be counterproductive to our community, like memes, bullying, and personal attacks? I'm sorry, I misstated. This is one of them for everybody.
Oh, okay.
As a board member, I don't believe that I would take to social media personally too much. I believe that should be something that the staff should be mitigating, other than just referring people to the Sun Valley website and to the office for all information regarding all the dynamics of the valley. I don't believe that there's any room for the personal attacks. I don't think it's productive. I don't think it's necessary or respectful. And anything discussed or put out there, I think should be deleted or overlooked and ignored, because I just feel it's really detrimental to the valley as a whole and to the people.
Okay, thank you. Andrew, you're on.
Okay. I don't think that, there's a lot we as board members can really do to control what people are going to say on Sudden Valley. I do think that as a board member that you don't need to be on social media constantly, and I think as far as the bullying and things like that happen on social media, it's pretty inappropriate. I don't think, we need it in our community. It doesn't help lessen any of the divides that have happened here. As if I was elected as a board of director, I think, I'd probably use social media, on occasion to let community members know of larger milestones or accomplishments, or, try to solicit feedback from community members. Obviously, it's a tool we can use to get feedback from property owners. We don't want it to be the only tool we use, obviously, but I do believe there needs to be more input gathered from the community as a whole, and I do think it is a valuable resource that we could use. But there's no reason for the board of directors to get into the weeds on things, but I think they can answer, questions that are asked politely of them, and they can, have dialogues with people, on social media.
Okay, thank you. Josh?
As a board director, I would use social media as objectively as possible. I think social media is awesome. And while I don't use it a lot for my personal stuff, other than like going on Instagram and sharing pictures or something, you can't really control what people do on there. And to even think about that is kind of, I don't know, that's not really a place where you want to be as a community. Yeah, some voices are louder than others, especially during, you know, all this petition and SGM stuff. But, you know, fighting for something, it's not always pretty. And I'm not, you know, saying it's okay to get nasty or ugly or anything like that. But, you know, everyone's so different, and you can't really put a cap on that. But as a community and association, I think you have the ability to bring more transparency into the community through social media, and, you know, signaling to people where they can apply for things, how they can get on committees and stuff. I was looking to possibly join the communications committee, and I couldn't really find out through the site where to do that. So, you know, one of the most important things you can do to get people involved is say, hey, we need some help, and social media is the perfect platform to do that.
Thank you. Steffi,
Can you repeat the question? I just don't want to forget any of it.
how would you utilize social media in your role as a board member? And how would you deal with social media activities that appear to be counterproductive to our community, like memes, bullying, and personal attacks?
Okay, so as a board member, social media, I would say that it's a great tool to get a read on people. And even if there's only 20 people who have a concern, I'm gonna wonder why they have that concern. I'm gonna need to look at things through their eyes and, okay, what's driving this? What's their perception? And if it's negative, then it needs, you know, this needs to be addressed, because just the fact that somebody is feeling or thinking this negativity or whatever's, you know, being spread on social media, whether it's true, false, you know, whatever. I think it's a great tool to get a read on things, and it shouldn't be dismissed, even if it's viewed as negative. You know, it should be definitely addressed. So let me see, address it quickly and acknowledge it, because people have feelings, and that's what drives them to do these things. Now, as far as memes or bullying, I think that as a board member, I would have to say, I'm gonna have to just ignore that and not take it personal, you know? That's the way it is. And, you know, as far as personal attacks, unfortunately, I've already been the subject of that. And one of my favorite things to think about in that instance is Brene Brown. She has a book, Dare to Lead, and she says, we have no time for the people in the cheap seats. We have work to do. So that's how I feel. Thank you.
Karen?
So I think social media, I think like a lot of us others have said, it's great for sharing information, but I think it's best when that comes from an official source. It gets really tricky when you're a member of a board or even a committee, and I have been guilty about this before. Sharing an opinion or even some facts, if I don't have it completely 100% accurate, it comes across as official, and I think that can sometimes get super tricky. People take it wrong. So I think it needs to be used very judiciously by board members. I don't think any argument has ever been won on Facebook. People seem to double down on their already held views. And so, again, I think it's great for sharing information, even as Steffi said, for getting a read on what's out there, but it's probably best to not engage in the discussion or in the arguments. And again, I've been guilty of it, but I need to remind myself sometimes to stick to factual things and to not really get into the opinions of it. I always think it's best to handle things in person, and committees are exactly the place to come to when you have an issue, show up and be part of the solution. And I think as the board, we can lead by example and just not participate in these things. The bullying, the personal attacks on either side, on any side from anyone, they just need to stop. They make our community look bad.
Thank you. So for our next 5 questions, you'll each be answering one of the random draws. Yes, we need a volunteer. We're going to try that. Karen?
Give me a good one.
All right. If elected, how are you prepared to place less emphasis on a personal agenda in order to facilitate the needs of all members? Please give at least one example.
Well, as I think was said kind of in the opening, there's really nothing that one board member can accomplish, and it all has to be done. This is a team sport here, and we all need to work together, not just the board, not just committees, but really the community as a whole. What got me originally involved in anything in Sudden Valley was I wanted Treehouse Park rebuilt. My kids, when we moved here, were 5 and 3, and I wanted them to be able to play in it before they were too big to think that that was cool. And as I got involved and learned more of the issues of stuff, I realized that, you know, actually we have other parks right now that are more used, and they have safety issues as well. And they're getting used right now, and we need to address these. And so I had to kind of put my own personal agenda of Treehouse Park. I haven't given up on it, still trying, but set that aside and address some more pressing issues first. We now have completed Maple Leaf Park, Huckleberry's done, Gate 5's getting done this year. This one's gonna get a little rehab too. And so I'm hoping that it's been a long haul, it's been 4.5 years, but we'll be able to get there. But it was something that I had to kind of look at the big picture and not make my wants kind of be the first priority.
Thank you. Who wants to be next? Okay, Josh, we'll get one for you. Name 3 positive things that the past board has accomplished which you would like to build on going forward.
That is one question that I would have to do a little research on because I was not involved as much with going to the board meetings at that time, so that will be my answer, but yeah, that was a tough one for me.
Who wants to be next? Josh?
Sure.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
She pulled the whiteboard hands. So let's see. Okay. All of the board members are expected to have, I'm not saying this wrong. All board members are expected to serve on a board committee. These include communication, finance, parks, trails, rec, document review, and emergency preparedness. Where do you think your talents would be best utilized and why?
Well, my platform that I'd like to run on is communication and figuring out how to bridge the gap and reach out to all the homeowners here. My interest is in parks and rec. I love being out on the lake. I love being out on the trails. That's where my passion is. And I really feel like though I'm a DoD contractor, so procedures and the emergency preparedness would actually be a little interest of me, or would be an interest to me. And I feel like that's where I can apply my knowledge and skills to assist with moving forward with that group.
Thank you. Who's next? Okay, Andrew. Okay. As one person working on a board, how do you plan to implement and accomplish your personal goals?
I think, you know, as one board member, the way to accomplish the goals that you're looking to set out to do, and, you know, I'd like to clarify that I don't think I would, you know, pursue a lot of personal goals. I think for me, gathering as much community input from people is something that seems to be lacking a bit. There's a large disconnect between, you know, what is being proposed and what people want, and some people want it, some people don't, some people, you know, are way down here on the spectrum, others are way up here, and we need to gauge where that middle ground is, and have a community agenda, not a personal agenda. I think, you know, as a single board member, I think collaborating with the community, gathering input, bringing that to your fellow board members, showing the fellow board members, you know, the community's responses and inputs, and feelings and emotions on things, and using all of that to create a plan moving forward that, you know, a vast majority of our community is backing, and it creates, you know, like a sense of pride, and I think it allows people, you know, to kind of relax a little bit, and, you know, there might not be so much questioning of the board all the time if there is this large community input process that that creates this plan that we intend to move forward with.
Thank you. Who's next?
Is that just me? I think I'm the only one
All
left.
right. Should amenities be self-sustaining? Please be specific in regards to parks, golf, pools, gym, and/or the marina.
Okay, so Andrew answered this question previously, and I would have to say that all of the amenities can't be self-sustaining because unless we're going to charge our members to use the parks, they're not going to really generate revenue. The marina is not really, I mean, if you look at the capital and the operational, it's not, you couldn't say it's self-sustaining for the projects that we're going to have to do. So no, they can't be. If you look at the entire picture, they can't be. That's why we have dues. Now, how much of that should we be supporting? That's the real question. And I think we can do better in some areas, and I think we can do that through the use of our community. We have some really amazing people here who have amazing skills. And if we reach out to those skill sets, I think we can cut costs and really shorten that gap that people are seeing and that they're unhappy about. So, yeah, that's my answer, long answer.
Thank you. And we're moving on to an everyone question. 2 minutes each person. And it is, how long had you lived in Sudden Valley? And since moving to the valley, in what ways have you contributed to the whole community as a volunteer in Sudden Valley? And let's do back where we started. Let's go with one of the gentlemen on the ends. How about Andrew?
Okay, can you repeat the question again, please?
Yeah. How long have you lived in Sudden Valley? And since moving here, in what ways have you contributed to the whole community as a volunteer here?
Okay. I moved to Sudden Valley about 2.5 years ago. We've been living here since. I have not served on any of the committees. I did try to join the Finance Committee this last year, but it was already full when I tried to do that. As far as volunteering goes, I have spent most of my time kind of volunteering for the community by keeping informed, reading board agenda packets, coming to board meetings. I've gotten up and spoken at a number of board meetings over the last 2.5 years. A lot of them tend to revolve around the budget time of the year. And so I think, yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it.
Okay, thank you. Let's go with the gentleman in this end, Joshua Luttrell.
I've lived in Sun Valley for 15 years. Whether it's, like I said before, at the gardening club, helping build boxes and moving the greenhouse and assisting up there. Done a lot of work on the golf course, helping maintenance out, building new tee boxes, tree removal. And a lot of mine has actually been just with my neighbors, you know. When big heavy stuff needs to be moved, somehow I get a knock on my door. And I've never once said no, and I've actually gone and asked my neighbors for help too. So even though I haven't really done anything as far as committees go, I have just tried to stay involved with my neighbors and friends throughout the gates in the community and helping each other out.
Thank you. How about the other Josh Bowen?
I've lived here for a year and a couple of months. You know, while it's not 100% of the community, I've had a lot of involvement with the We Are Sudden Valley initiative to push the SGM with the petition. I've spent countless hours working on graphics and tracking analytics through websites, sending out emails, helping with petition drives, and helping instill community pride through, you know, to a lot of people, and, you know, with the help of a lot of other neighbors as well. As far as anything else goes, you know, I mentioned the signs. I'm working with Joe Akla, Bruce in maintenance, and also the other maintenance guys to do that. You know, I'm donating the design of the sign, and you know, Steffi's husband's actually helping with installing the signs, and, you know, we mitered the posts for them. I've got them in my garage right now. I painted the post, and it's taken a lot of time, but you know, I think it's going to be awesome once those are up and in place. And lastly, since I work from home, I'm usually the one that people call to make sure that there's a package on their porch, and I have to go get it. So that's another way I volunteer.
Okay, thank you. Karen?
Yeah, so I have lived here for 5 years, and I have been serving on some sort of committee for at least the past 4 years. I can't exactly remember when I joined Long Range Planning, but it was shortly after moving here. And it seems like each committee I serve on leads to something else. Long Range Planning, we split into subcommittees. I ended up being the chair of the Parks and Trails subcommittee. It's why I joined anyway. And that ended up, I helped, along with Carol Trower, to get that established as an ad hoc committee that has been recharted for the last several years. I worked on the Sudden Valley Strong Group, which proposed this special assessment that keeps our pools and our parks and this building right here funded. If you go downstairs through this little door, you could see the maintenance, the parks maintenance plan that we recently completed this year, and we went through and inventoried each of the 20 parks, and we also prioritized them as far as the big projects that need to happen with them. And I did a little stint on ACC, and now I have the pleasure of serving on the Finance Committee, and through it I have learned a lot about this community, and I have been able to interact with different people that I might not have met otherwise and be able to understand their concerns and their perspective, and so it's been a really rewarding experience.
Thank you. Steffi?
Okay, so like I said before, we moved here in October of 2016, and I still get happy when I say that. It's a very happy day for us. And what ways have I contributed? Well, first I need to start out by saying thank you to my husband, Scott. Thank you, because I volunteer here, or volunteer him. He gets voluntold, let's just say. So during the snowstorm, my husband and I delivered groceries to people. My husband shoveled out an entire street because he has an amazing amount of energy and a big heart. I took people to town, and because I had to get to town one of those days, I had to see a patient. So we took someone along with us to get them to an appointment. Like I said, I volunteer my husband. He's going to help with the signs, which I'm very proud to say is happening. Thank you for that, Josh. Let me see. My husband and another gentleman have worked on someone's deck in Gate 1. There was a poor old gentleman that got taken advantage of, so he and his friend are going to fix his deck. They got it pretty much done right now. Let me see. My husband is about to build a wheelchair ramp. Let's see. I worked my tail end off on this petition, and I talked to a lot of people. I helped out quite a bit with that. Let me see. I help out a lot on my street, too, because those are my neighbors, and they're close, you know. Let's see. I also like to buy people food when they're in need, because housing and food security are a huge passion for me. So if I see somebody messaging on Facebook, this is another thing social media is great for. If I see somebody messaging asking about the food cupboard, then I go to a Fred Meyer click list and I buy, you know, a good size amount of groceries for them, and they can just go pick it up. So that's that. And, oh, okay, and Thanksgiving and Christmas boxes. So.
Thank you. One moment. We are going to allow up to 3 minutes for this one. It's sort of a combined question. 2 parts. Do you think it's possible to find a compromise in our diverse community? How would you balance the ideas of dissolve the HOA with the idea of make the community a high-end resort? And you have up to 3 minutes each. And let's start at this end with Josh.
Can you repeat the first part of the
Sure.
question, please?
It's all together.
Okay.
Do you think it's possible to find a compromise in our diverse community? How would you balance the ideas, on the one hand, of dissolve the HOA with, on the another hand, make the community a high-end resort? And there's, of course, all sorts of variations in between.
Okay, there's the question. Right there.
I think it is possible. Again, though, it's getting the community together, getting the right information out and everyone, finding a compromise in one way or another. Sort of along the line of this. So all of our dues go to amenities. I don't use the pool, but my neighbors do. And that's great because that brings joy to my neighbors. And so I think if a lot of us can bring the positive attitude to work together and find the common ground, I think we could. I think we could meet in the middle. I think we can move forward and make Sun Valley great, a great place to live, to raise our children, to really hunker down. To dissolve the HOA, I think, would be a real shame. I don't think that's the right direction, and because not all of us want to make it a high-end resort, myself included, I don't think we should do that, but if we can all meet in the middle and understand each other's positions and find compromise, I think we could do that.
Thank you. Andrew?
So I think for sure that we can find a middle ground. I think it starts with getting, as much input from the community as possible. I moved here just before the revitalization SGM. I believe that was 2017. They did some surveys back in 2017 of the community. As I understand, there was some questions of whether the surveys were totally representative of the community or not. But I think that's where it all begins. I think we need to get as much input from the community as possible, and we need to, if we're gonna plan big projects like potentially replacing this dance barn or fixing the dance barn up, I think, it needs to come from the community. I don't think the board should unilaterally be making decisions on these huge directions that we're gonna go, Obviously, this barn is a hot topic of the whole resort dream versus dissolving the association. I think as of right now, there is a lot of middle ground. I think most people are in the middle ground as much as just like the national climate of politics. All we ever hear, the two loudest sides are the extreme this side and the extreme that side, and everyone else is basically just sitting in the middle, agreeing on most things, but aren't, the most vocal people necessarily in the room. And I think, we just need a sensible path forward that takes into account, having to limit the amount of dues that we need to collect from people, but still creating an association that we're all proud of. And I think for the most part, I think we're pretty much there. There's just a lot of opinions out there, and we just need to gather more, and we need to do it in a formal manner so that we can really understand what our community wants. Do they want to dissolve the association? Do they want a high-end resort? do they want something closer to one of those things? Where do the majority of people fall? And I think, you know, at the end of the day, most people would be able to get behind, if we have a majority of people saying we want this, that, you know, most people would tend to agree.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think it is possible to find a compromise. So, I'm not even certain that people really want a high-end resort or to completely dissolve the HOA. I feel like these comments are made in frustration. I think it starts with telling people that you're listening, you know, not taking things personal and, you know, not getting upset or telling people, well, if you don't like it, move. You know, the board people are here to represent all people. So, you know, I think that, like Andrew, AJ said, that it is important to get community input. And so then with these amenities and all of these things, when you're asking the people what they want, put a price tag next to it. These are the things that we're gonna have to be looking at. I mean, because I know if I was gonna go out and buy a hot tub, I'm gonna wanna know the price, you know? These little amenities all add up and people just need to look at it, give their input. And as board members, we would have to represent the entire community, not just the percentage that elects you, just, you know, keep everybody in mind. And I think we can find a middle ground. And I honestly think that if everyone had a voice, they would feel comfortable in saying, okay, well, I can give that up, or yeah, I don't have to have that because look at how many people this is important to, and this is how much this costs. It's, you know, when we're all shopping for things, those are things we look at. Why not gather the information from our members? So, thanks.
Thank you. Karen?
Yes, I do think it's possible that we can find a compromise in this. I have to agree with, I think, what most people have said so far is that I don't really think we are that far apart. I have, you know, I've worked in various regards in the community for a long time. I've never met anyone in person who really held to that ideal of either, yes, we definitely should dissolve, or yes, I definitely want a resort. Most of us are here in the middle, and so we're probably not that far from a compromise. But what we need to do is to better be able to understand the value that people associate with different amenities and find the compromise on that, because I think we can all talk about, you know, the pools are really important to me, they might not be for everyone, and kind of find the common ground and then be able to express the value to others and express why that is important to people. I think our decisions need to be based on really solid data. We really need to understand how much it's going to cost to do some of these bigger projects, what the various options are, and absolutely get community buy-in in this. They are big decisions, but we need to very much make sure that we are communicating that well, and in return, we need the community to be able to see this information and understand that we are that it's being presented to the community as information to weigh in on, and not necessarily something that the board is pushing for. I think some of that will be coming down. I think we're trying to find, you know, this building in particular, how much that's going to cost, what are the options, and we need to be able to put that information out and have the community be able to look at it without, you know, saying the board is pushing for this one way or this one way. I hear every once in a while people talk about this building being an event center, and I haven't heard anybody say that in probably 2 or 3 years. And so it's letting go of some of those past things that were said and really looking to who this board is going to be and who's on there now, and looking for what direction that they want to take things, and in return the board looking to the community and getting the input from them and really getting the buy-in from them.
Thank you. Josh?
I definitely think we can find a compromise, and I believe we are really close to that, especially after today when there's, you know, over 2,000 votes cast for stability in our dues and assessments. And I believe it was 84.2% of the people that said yes. And, you know, that shows me that more people are involved in the community here, and they want stability, and they want to be able to plan their budgets. I think one thing that we have that's great here is that we're so diverse, you know, economically speaking. There's people from all walks of life in here, and I think as, you know, a board and as a community itself, we need to make sure that we pay attention to their needs with new projects and new items on the ticket. Because it, you know, it really affects people when dues go up 47% or whatever it was last time. And that's why people get frustrated and they want to dissolve the HOA, and they don't want to hear about a resort community. You know, because, I mean, resort community, we have all these trees and the lake, and it's beautiful out here. I don't know what else you could, you know, what you would want, but, you know, when I think resort community, I think Florida, and, you know, I love Florida. But, you know, I think we just need to make sure that we're keeping everyone in mind when we're moving forward. And as far as dissolving the HOA, I know there's a lot of, you know, a lot of obstacles with something like that, so I can't really comment on that. That would be, you know, that would have to be inputted by the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will be doing the candidate closing statements. Each one will have 2 minutes. And before we do that, I just want to remind everyone, if you have any questions that you want these folks to answer on October 9th, Wednesday, downstairs in the multi-purpose room, at 7 o'clock to 9, that will be our second and last forum. The cards are over there, the box to put them in is over there, those wonderful handouts for you to take for everybody. And I think that's it. So we'll start with whoever would like to go first with 2 minutes for your closing remarks. Yes.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's here, and especially those who came out to the SGM this morning. I know it's a lot to be sitting in here in this hot barn. I'm like sweating bullets up here because I'm nervous and it's hot. You know, I see Sudden Valley becoming a place that turns itself around. And, you know, before I moved here, I looked up the reviews of it and I saw what people were saying, and there's a lot of negative traction out there, and, you know, and it's before social media. This stuff, the dysfunction goes back a long time, but I think we can turn it around, and with more community involvement and more creative thinking and more passion and just trying to build give the community a voice and build some pride that we can all get behind, I think that would make this a successful community. I would like to see it being the place that, you know, everyone talks about wanting to live. And because I believe that can happen. And it's beautiful out here, and I think we just need to get our ducks in a row. And it would be awesome if Sudden Valley was like the premier place you'd want to raise a family and have fun and play out here in Whatcom County. And, you know, as I mentioned, I have a lot to learn, but I'm willing to dedicate my time to being on the board and trying to help better this place. And, you know, I think my creative problem-solving skills could really help the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua Bowens. Who would like to go next? Okay. Karen?
So I really think, you know, the Sudden Valley has been through a lot in the last couple of years with the law changes and some various things. I think how it was working before wasn't really working. We had a lot of deferred maintenance and deferred projects, and it's kind of put us into this situation where we are now. And so I think the next 3 to 5 years are really going to be critical for us to get on the right path. We need a board that's really focused on long-term solutions and focused on getting the community to have buy-in on those long-term solutions as well. When I, kind of like Joshua, when we moved here, when we're looking online for houses and stuff, I could not believe that we could afford a place, you know, with a lake and all of the things that this community has. I really think that it could be the premier place to live, that it's really sought out and desirable. And I hope that we're able to accomplish that. For those that really have a passion about something, I think the best way to have your voice heard is to join a committee. It can be such a great experience and give you such a great perspective, and board meetings and social media and all these things are great for sharing ideas, but committees are where solutions happen and where those come through. So I would just encourage, I heard a couple people mention parks here. I did take some notes. I will probably be reaching out to you to work on those. But we all have to work together. There's really no other way to do that. It's the only way for the community to be successful is for everyone to really work together and to be willing to listen to each other and to work on those goals together.
Thank you, Karen. Who would like to be next? Andrew?
All right. I think my closing statement is, I've been talking a lot about community input up here, and I think that's, a main factor in how we need to move forward. We need a unified path forward that, majority of our property owners agree with. And I think, we have to start to prioritize, a lot of the things that need to be done. As Karen said, there's, a fair amount of deferred maintenance, and, it seems unrealistic with the amount of properties that have changed hands in the last 3 years in this community, with the housing market being as hot as it was over the last couple years, and all of the homes that have changed hands, it's not totally realistic to think that the people that just moved here within the last few years, need to foot the bill to bring everything back up to like this, gold standard immediately. We need a long-term plan on how to move forward. We have a 10-year plan, but we need a longer plan. The amount of projects that have been shoved into a 10-year plan, we can't afford them, just flat out. And we needed to develop a prioritized list of how we want to move forward and what things the community deems the most important. And we need to silo those things. We don't need to package everything up into this one grand revitalization plan. We need to put proposals in front of our community that they can support, that are no-brainers, that, make too much sense to not move forward with. We need to convince the community that this needs to be done this way.
Thank you, Andrew. Who's next?
I can go, thanks. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who came. Thank you for coming now, and thank you to those who came earlier for the SGM. And just to let you know that my hopes for the board, whether or not I'm there or not, is that we'll get a board that's willing to dig in and do the hard work and not just throw money at issues, because that is what our community is a little bit frightened of right now. This is a financial crunch for a lot of people right now. I wanted to say thank you for voting, because we had 2,000 people voting. That's huge. Please ask everyone you know to vote. That's important. It's our voice. And you can't argue with solid evidence of what people are saying when they're voting. And then also, if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I am on social media. You can reach out to me there. We live at 15 Cascade Lane. Everybody knows that. So, send me a note, stop by, stop me at the market, wherever. Reach out to me in any way. And please take a handout, and that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. And Joshua?
You.
Yes, sorry.
It's all good. I feel like this is a really crucial time for the Valley. This has been decades in the making with lack of vision and long-term planning. It's unfortunate that it's kind of hit us this way, but I think if everyone can come together and discuss things and agree as a collective, I think we can move forward and get that long-term planning and really bounce back from what we have right now. I think we're moving in the right direction, and I'm just really excited to be a part of it and the opportunity to serve on the board and help that vision and long-term planning, so we can all keep enjoying this wonderful place we live. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all for being here, and thank you. A big round of applause for these 5 candidates.